And in that long-range process of making America Muslim, all of America Muslim, then we have to have some actual short-range goals. We do not want to melt into American society and disappear. We want to go into American society with Islamic ideals and revamp their thinking. We want to revamp them. We want to turn them into Muslim individuals.
That we, when we stand up to those who oppress our communities, that Allah accepts from us that as a form of jihad, that we are struggling against tyrants and rulers, not only abroad in the Middle East or in the other side of the world, but here in these United States of America, where you have fascists and white supremacists and Islamophobes reigning in the White House.
We have to help those people in their causes because their causes are our causes. Black Lives Matter is our matter. Black Lives Matter is our campaign.
Let's recognize that we are the community that staged a revolution across the world. If we could do that, why can't we have that revolution in America?
So what are the goals of the Muslim Brotherhood according to their own 1991 document found in 2004 and entered into evidence as part of the federal trial against the Holy Land Foundation? Here is what their own document says. The process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process with all the word means. The Muslim Brotherhood must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers.
We can't just do rallies. We have to fight back. There will be casualties on both sides. There will be, because people have to die to make a change in this world. But Trump, enough with your racism. Stop splitting families.
For me, capitalism is like the all-consuming thing. Capitalism maintains white supremacy, white privilege, racism, sexism, patriarchy, heteronormativity, you name it, capitalism.
Billy Vaughn, despite Muslim Brotherhood's history in the involvement of the Holocaust and founding the terrorist arm of Hamas in 1987, FBI Director Mueller in 2008 presented a Director's Award to senior Muslim Brotherhood jurist Imam Yahya Hindi. But in 2016, then FBI Director James Comey presented an award to Jihad Imam Mohammed Majid.
Leadership of the FBI is either complicit or doesn't have a clue. And they don't have an excuse to not have a clue. And whatever the answer is there, the result is the same for the American citizen.
There's no way that the Muslims could be doing what they're doing in our country unless they were being given access and support and empowerment by the Marxists in America.
The jihadis know that they can ride the coattails of the Marxist movement right into what they see as revolution. Now, after that revolution, the jihadis certainly feel like they're going to take over, and the Marxists feel like they'll be in control. But in the meantime, they will work together.
And I'm a student here at UCSD. I was reading your literature. I found that much more interesting than the talk. And I found some interesting things about the MSA, which is an organization that's very active on campus, and it is hosting our annual Hitler Youth Week. You should come out to those events.
I'm a Jew. The head of Hezbollah has said that he hopes that we will gather in Israel so he doesn't have to hunt us down globally. For it or against it?
For it.
Do you believe, Malik Ali, being brought here year after year, that Hamas, the terrorist group, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, do you believe that they are terrorist groups? Do you support Hamas?
Yes.
Do you support Hezbollah?
Yes.
Do you support Islamic Jihad?
Yes.
Do you support jihad on this campus?
As long as it's in the form of speaking truth to power, yes.
Tonight on WVW Broadcast Network News, Claire Lopez, former CIA analyst, now with the Center for Security Policy, joins us to discuss the Club K cargo terminals cars that are coming into, well, perhaps the United States of America. They're manufactured in Russia and they contain the ability to launch 4 cruise missiles. You're also going to find out about Saddam Hussein's former head of his nuclear program that has been given a 35-year lease to Port Canaveral in Florida and his connection to the exporter of the Club K cargo missile launching system.
Amin Nabi Mir, the staff chairperson again for 5 years at CFIUS during the period when both Uranium One and the Gulf Tainer deal at Port Canaveral went through CFIUS. And that individual not only had direct connections, leadership connections to the Muslim Brotherhood, but through his father, direct connections involving the Pakistani intelligence service.
But let's add another layer to it. Dr. Jaffer was mentored going back many, many years by a Russian general, a spy master known as the Bear in the Desert, who was also involved, according to your 91-page report, as being the man who put together the Islamic bloc and created the war on terror that is consuming a lot of our money, our national treasure, and our time, while Russia, keeping us distracted, is rebuilding their military to incredible levels.
His actual name is Vladimir Rezin, but he writes under the pen name of Viktor Suvorov. He wrote a book that was published in the United Kingdom called Spetsnaz. And one of the chapters in the book is about how they would set up World War III. He called this period of preparation, they call this period the Overture. That's their nickname for it. And during the Overture, they would set up a terrorist organization that would have no apparent connection to Moscow to attack the West and to divert the security resources of the West, both intelligence and military resources, to dealing with this other terrorist threat. We would see no connection with Russia, and in fact, but it would be mercenaries controlled by intermediaries, fully controlled by Russia. The Russians had another name for this, according to Suvorov. They called it Gray Terror. And that Gray Terror in its final phase would resolve into Red Terror with full-blown nuclear war against the United States once the U.S. had finally collapsed and been sufficiently diverted by this other enemy. There are many different kinds of Marxists out there, and not all Marxists are actually members of the fifth column that's helping Moscow and Beijing. What I would say is that the deep state is the communist, that is Marxist-Leninist, pro-Beijing, pro-Moscow fifth column. And the communist fifth column is the deep state.
At the time, we were told that the FBI had some limited prior knowledge of the event. And I was asked, had they contacted me, and they hadn't contacted my security team. And according to the Garland, Texas police, they had not contacted them as well. He was at the event, this undercover FBI agent. He was inside the venue, and he was texting with the ringleader. But what is so astonishing and shocking and jaw-dropping is that the FBI knew that jihadists were targeting the event. The FBI knew, and actually even, in the conversation said, and I quote, tear up Texas. That's what our FBI agent had said to the jihadists. And yet, the FBI did nothing in the event of the shooting. They didn't have a team there. They had no safety measure, no protective measure, nothing.
Tonight on WVW Broadcast Network News, a special report on Sunday night, April 9th, 2017. An admitted Muslim came in to our Christian Worldview Conference in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, that was standing room only. He had a weapon. He had a Quran. He then made a video in the parking lot of our conference while it was still going on. He brandished 5 weapons, including 2 assault rifles and lots of ammunition, and told us to be afraid and to be terrified. No charges have yet been filed. As Antifa joined the Islamists and Southern Poverty Law Center and shut down 4 out of 5 of our conferences in April of 2018 by claiming we were a hate group and we had hate speakers, and they threatened the hotels and flooded them with calls. And we heard about some of the threats, and the hotels pulled our contracts. Now, the next level would be not only shutting down conferences, but showing up at people's homes. Now we have the Antifa-type groups confronting people in restaurants. Recently, we saw 2 conservative journalists confronted at a restaurant outside. The police had to get involved. How long before we start seeing them showing up at people's homes, Trevor, here in America, as they're doing in Europe?
Look, this is very close. They're already recording the names of ICE agents. They're compiling big networks right now of enemies, their addresses, etc. And they will do what they have done in Europe. They'll start turning up at people's homes, businesses, harassing them, threatening their families. This is a common European phenomenon, and it's all ready to come here.
We're going to go back through all of his contacts and habits, but I think this is an important time to say this isn't about Islam. It's not about what mosque he attends.
Because we are being lied to while our country is being taken away from us and being made to believe that we're not really seeing what we're seeing. But we have continuous government authorities in the military, in the media, and everywhere across this country who continue to tell us the same narrative that we know is not true.
There are also chapters or franchises of the Muslim Brotherhood, but there is no overarching agenda, and particularly in pursuit of violence, at least internationally.
We know it is not true. We know in our gut it is not true, but it is so intimidating to stand up and take a stand against this because that is part of the war.
Because of political correctness, you were not allowed to do your job, and they even convened a grand jury against you for supposedly, violating the rights of the terrorist?
Yeah, the reasons that they investigated me and began to take the information out of the system, I was investigated 9 times, 8 of them by the Obama administration for the violation of the civil rights and civil liberties of foreign nationals and violation of their privacy rights.
And what others in the evangelical, neo-evangelical churches are doing by not only bringing Marxists into the church and Marxism into the church, but by bringing Islamists into the church, the Muslim Brotherhood into the church.
The thing that makes this wonderful and the reason that I sought out Dr. Qadi, aside from the fact that I have learned so much from him over the years, that he's been a primary influence in my study of Islam.
The majority of Jews in our times, 80 to 90%, and especially the Jews in Eastern Europe, almost 100% of them, all of these Polish Jews that Hitler was supposedly trying to exterminate, that's another point by the way, Hitler never intended to mass destroy the Jews. There are a number of books out written by Christians on this, you should read them. The Hoax of the Holocaust, I advise you to read this book, you want to write this down. The Hoax of the Holocaust, a very good book. All of this is false propaganda, and I know it sounds so far-fetched in these theories, but read it. The evidences are very strong.
And I've learned much from him. But the reason I specifically sought him out is because I sense in him such a kindred spirit on the other side.
And remember I showed you last night, what does CARE want to do with these Christian activists? They want to get them to the point where they can have them turn on true Christians and report us.
We have never identified the enemy. And here in this country, what is it you hear every time there's a jihadi attack? Almost without exception, the FBI comes out and says, we were watching them. I'll tell you what, as one American, I'm sick and tired of them watching them and ending up with dead Americans. This has to cease.
All who will live godly in Christ Jesus shall suffer persecution. Not some may, but all. And if you aren't, folks, you're not shining the light in the darkness, and that's what we're called to do. We are to be in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, holding forth the word of truth and shining as lights in the world. And they love the darkness rather than the light. Loving the darkness rather than the light. They want to put your light out. The war that is being waged abroad is taking away from our focus on the war that is being waged at home. And we must stand fast, we must stand firm, we must stand up, we must speak up by life or by death.